Hey YouTube, Brian here. I'm going to be doing a top 15 countdown of the funniest people of all time, in my opinion. I couldn't reduce this one to 10 by any means. So let's get to it. Number one on here is former SNL cast member Will Ferrell. I loved his work as Harry Carey and as George Bush. Uh, he went up there and he captured the little vibes and quirks and like mispronouncing shit that George Bush had. He captured it perfectly, and I also liked him as Ron Burgundy in the Anchorman movies. I think Will Ferrell is a candidate for funniest dude of the last generation. Um, Number two on my list is often called a comedian's comedian, and a lot of his movies are thus cult movies and haven't received the reviews or attention that they deserve. Norm Macdonald, for example, Dirty Work, where he teamed up with Artie Lang, is an example of that, where it got kind of poor reviews and it didn't make a whole lot of money, but it's really, really, really funny, and it has like this hilarious cameo by Gary Coleman as like the devil, and yeah, I love that movie. He also had this memorable appearance at a roast where he told family friendly, inoffensive, and proper jokes from like a 50s dinner table jokes book. Um, Everyone else at the show had been telling these crude and inoffensive, politically incorrect, and mean spirited jokes. So I guess he was trying to go against the grain of what was expected of him. And that's what makes Norm Macdonald one of the best comedians of all time, in my opinion, because he's kind of a maverick, you know. He always goes against the grain. Like when they fired him from SNL, and he later came back to host it and kind of give him the finger a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of one of the reasons that Norm Macdonald is so cool, you know. Number three on my list is Jim Carrey. Early on in his career, he was um, kind of I don't know how to describe it. He was memorable on In Living Color as characters like the Juice Weasel and Vera DeMilo and Fire Marshal Bill. I think Bill Maher actually put it best when he said that nobody could play one of Jim Carrey's characters except him, you know? And that really tells it best because nobody else could have been the Mask or who else am I trying to name here? The Mask or Ace Ventura or Cable Guy. Number four on my list is Robin Williams. Rest in peace. He always struggled with drugs and alcohol, but he had this frenetic energy where he owned the stage with his comedic presence. No matter who else was there, it was instantly kind of dominated by Robin Williams. Whether it was a voice acting appearance like in Aladdin as the genie, or whether it was one of his stand up appearances, even just an interview on like Conan O'Brien or something. Robin Williams owned it. Number five, famous for the seven dirty words, George Carlin. He really expanded what people were able to tell jokes about because previously there was a lot of untouchable topics and a lot of things you really couldn't say. Um, he did stand up all the way throughout his life until he passed in his early 70s. Again, rest in peace, and we miss you. You know, he didn't pass recently or anything, but without him, we really couldn't have had people like the next guy on my list. Number six, Bill Burr. I think he's the funniest guy of the 2010s, probably. Um, he's similar in nature to George Carlin, that he's kind of observatory and tells jokes that tear society a new one when there's something that people don't want to talk about that's kind of fucked up in nature. Um, yeah. Number seven on my list, famous mostly I think for his roast appearances, uh, where he really kind of touched on subjects that I think they told the comedians not to touch about the roasties. Um, yeah, he really he didn't just touch those; he like tap danced on them, and his few stand-up specials were pretty memorable too. Greg Giraldo, rest in peace. Number 8 is political comedian Bill Maher. He previously had been on show Politically Incorrect, but was fired after he'd made some well, politically incorrect statements, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. And now he's on HBO on Real Time, which you can catch clips from on YouTube. But it's so funny that it's probably the best show going today in terms of political comedy, and you can catch clips of it on YouTube. But it's probably worth checking out the whole thing, I think. Number 9 is Jon Stewart. He's not active anymore. He used to be the host of The Daily Show until being replaced by Trevor Noah, who I don't think is quite as funny. I think that a lot of his jokes pander to a more base demographic. You know, he tells jokes that are lower brow and not as funny. Um, Number 10 on my list is going to be another John Oliver, who was a correspondent previously on The Daily Show when Jon Stewart hosted it. John Oliver now hosts his own show, and he's also very funny, but I think in recent seasons he's not as funny as he was at first. He's kind of dumbed it down a little bit. He's not quite as entertaining as he was in the beginning. Number 11 is the infrequently seen Dave Chappelle. I wish he'd work a little bit more often. He had that special in the early 2000s, Killing 'Em Softly, which was a classic. And then I think he did another one in '04. And he's hardly worked since, you know. The Chappelle Show, of course, is worth buying the series on DVD or on Blu-ray, whatever you get it on. It's a classic, and he has work where he does impressions that you wouldn't have thought someone would have done as early on in a series as he touched on them, you know, like where he played African American supremacist in his first episode. That's pretty ballsy to go that far and to touch on subjects that you wouldn't have thought someone who was a veteran and had a little more security, you wouldn't have thought they would have gone that far. But he didn't just go that far. He really extended what people could get away with, I think. Number 12 on my list is going to be Eddie Murphy, another SNL veteran. He did a great impression of Stevie Wonder, and he got into a long-standing feud, I think, with SNL, and didn't appear again until a recent season. That's an interesting note. You know, Eddie Murphy has had his own movie career, which is so expansive that it's really hard to dive into. Number 13 on my list rather is going to be the ever vulgar, kind of like almost like a X-rated version of Bill Burr, is Doug Stanhope. I haven't seen him work in recent years. Kind of like the rapper Immortal Technique almost. He's appeared more often in the early 2000s, and that was when he did most of his work, you know. Number 14 is going to be Danny DeVito, mostly for his work as Frank in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He plays this greasy, just it's easy to revile him, and he puts a lot of believability into a character that's pretty ridiculous in nature. Number 15 is a guy who kind of reminds me almost of the singer of Blind Melon, Shannon Hoon, uh, Mitch Hedberg. He had a couple of appearances in that 70s show, I think. Yeah, he appeared as like a waiter or something. He was like tending to the counters, he was only in like 3 episodes, though. He passed in his 20s, and he's another guy who died way before his time and will be missed. Mitch Hedberg had this kind of observational, unique style, I think, that was influenced by, frankly, how high he was. He had kind of a flat, deadpan delivery. Um, yeah. Anyways, uh, that's my list. Thank you for watching. I'm out now.